just the two of us are here? I thought it was parking committee.
I got it.
Yes, I call this meeting of the policy committee to order at 6:03 p.m. See, I will announce that this meeting is being recorded and go into a roll call. Jonathan.
Dr. Freeman. And I here.
Sorry, I'm here. I don't know if
to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship with mutual respect and understanding. Did that die?
I think it went to one video, so.
Oh, good point.
Maya, can you still hear us? Oh yeah, we're still good.
Okay, all right.
It's just the video.
Okay. Public comment period. At this time, any member of the public may speak on matters in the subject matter jurisdiction of the policy committee that are not on the agenda. The committee will not take action on any item that is not on the agenda except as provided by law. Jonathan, do we have any public comments?
No public comment.
All right, moving on to discussion and action items. 3.1 community spaces rental fees policy. The committee will have a discussion on community spaces rental fees and give direction to staff. Jonathan,
I'll turn it over to Maya to walk through the proposal and see if we're ready to forward this to the board.
Hey, can I share my screen? So I just wanted to go over the overview of the policy and then I'll open it up for any questions. So I know we've gone over this a few times, but our objective is to establish a clear and equitable policy for community members regarding the usage of the community spaces. Generally, free or low payment events will provide high community benefit, are open to the public, and occur during non-prime times. And then typically paid events generate revenue, are closed to the public, or occur during prime times. Prime time slots are described as Monday to Thursday from 5 p.m. onwards, Friday to Sunday from 12 p.m. onwards, and then discounts for Mondays and Fridays for eligible groups. And then this is our matrix, I guess you could say, which describes as these different zones. So we have slow open to the public, slow close to the public, prime time Mondays and Fridays with the discount, and then prime time on any other day. So the proposed pricing structure is a high fee would be $25 an hour for the center, $20 an hour for the room. A low pay would be $10 for the center, $8 per hour for the room. And if we plug that in to the calendar events that occurred from January 2023 to June 2023, we see a total revenue of about $25,000, just a little bit under. Now, this obviously is not the most beautiful Excel sheet, I will say. It is imported from the calendar, but we did organize it by what quadrant or zone the fee would fall into, and then how much that hourly event would have generated. I didn't apply any sliding scale fees for this activity. We do have some sliding scale payment exceptions. So eligible residents can apply for sliding scale payments if they provide proof of enrollment in a low income program, proof of residence, and then their overall event budget. Nonprofits and local businesses can also apply for sliding scale payments if their operational budget is $1 million or more, they have a higher rate, or less than $1 million, a lower rate. Event types: free if the event provides service, is open to the public, low cost if the event is for internal planning and closed to the public, and higher cost if the event generates revenue or is closed to the public. And then we have here low cost if open to the public, higher cost if closed to the public for student clubs. Other than that, reservations are first come, first serve basis, depending on when the reservation quarter opens. And Yeah, that's basically it. We also did talk about insurance requirements at the last policy committee meeting, and I will say that we did hear back from our insurance that we are able to provide special events coverage, and it's a very wide array of options that we'll be able to share with people who are interested. But it ranges a lot in the fees and the type of event. So does anyone, I can keep sharing my screen or stop sharing, but I'd like to open up for questions or discussion.
Maya, you're gonna need to just start the whole thing over. We didn't get you.
Okay.
So sorry.
That's
My,
okay.
I heard you. I thought it was great.
Well,
That is a good point,
sorry,
actually.
you hear
Because it
that.
was on the YouTube stream, we actually could, within seconds, just listen to her audio.
Might be faster to do it this way.
Okay.
So would you like me to read through it again? I can also just highlight, overview, whatever works best. I can also turn off my camera if you think that would help.
No, it's not, just do it again. Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't have one.
Okay. So
I really can't then if you'd like right now.
No.
Okay, all right.
okay, so generally, free or low payment events will be low cost if they provide high community benefit, are open to the public, and occur during non-prime times. When we say high community benefit, we're primarily talking about a service to the community, which is primarily what happens at open community events when things are provided. So that's what I mean by that. Standard paid events will generate revenue, are closed to the public, or occur during prime times. Prime time slots Monday through Thursday from 5 p.m. onwards, Friday to Sunday from 12 p.m. onwards. And then on Monday and Friday, we have discounts because they are slightly less popular than the other days. So here we have a policy matrix to talk about which fee category for specific event types. Slashes indicate a sliding scale for qualified users, which I will talk about in a second. But basically each event will fall under one of these zones based on what time of the day and whether or not they are open or closed to the public and day of the week. So high pay is denoted as $25 an hour for the center and $20 an hour for the room. Low pay is $10 an hour for the center and $8 an hour for the room. And then this is also including any setup and cleanup time. So when we plug those numbers into 2023 between January and June, we get this Excel sheet, which I will say is a little messy. It is imported from the calendar data, but what we did is we placed each one in a quadrant from the policy matrix and then denoted what price based on location, day, and time. And without any sliding scales in this practice, I think there are some where it's free because we see during the zone that it falls in. It naturally is free. But we get just under $25,000 for half the year. Just to see what that would be like. Sliding scale payment exceptions. So for local Isla Vista residents, they are eligible to apply for sliding scale payment if they provide proof of enrollment in a low-income program, proof of residence, and their overall event budget. Nonprofits and local businesses can also apply for sliding scale payments if their operational budget is $1 million or below. When we think about the types of things we would like to provide a sliding scale for, free if the event provides services and is open to the public, low cost if the event is for internal planning and closed to the public, and higher cost if the event generates revenue or is closed to the public. And a general trend follows with the student clubs. And then the general guidelines for reservations go hand in hand with our other policies. Reservations are first come, first serve once the date opens for each quarter. We also talked about insurance in our last policy committee meeting. So bringing that back, we did reach out to our insurance providers and we are able to do special events coverage for people. There's a lot of options that vary a lot in pricing due to the type of the event. So if they're interested, they can reach out to us and we can share all of that with them. And that is all. I really hope you heard that this time.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, good. Good. Now I'm open for any questions, comments, feedback.
I'm curious, when you said that we could provide information to people relating to the insurance, I wasn't quite sure if you were saying that we could essentially like forward them to the insurance agency and like give them information on how to talk to them, or if you meant like actually provide all the nuance to them ourselves, or?
Yeah, the insurance gave me like a big manual essentially with a lot of information on the different types of event coverage that they offer, and they said that we can share that with people. I'm imagining that we might want staff to maybe interact with our insurance once they get the necessary paperwork that we need from the user, but I'm open to suggestions there.
You know, I guess my hope would be we could figure out some way to make it so that the people who are coming to us don't really have to understand much about insurance, as opposed to handing them the giant manual. If we could figure out some way of like, where we could look at their event and then say, oh, here's what you need, because this is we're the one requiring them to have the insurance. It's not like there's a law that's doing it. So I appreciate that, like in some sense they're the ones getting the insurance. It's like we're the ones who insisted on it. And so if we could tell them what they're supposed to get, and then like they could just fill out just the minimal thing that they need, potentially not like and then pay for it, right? Like it's I just really would love to get to a scenario where people don't end up having to deal with insurance as one of the limitations for doing their event.
Yes, that makes sense. I just stopped sharing my screen because I was going to look and see if I can show you their matrix in the manual, to see if maybe a breakdown of something like this is what you mean.
I feel like any breakdown is not what I mean. Like I mean like okay, so like the one complaint people sometimes have about the current tax system in the United States is that I have to read a bunch of material to understand how to file my taxes and figure out how much taxes I owe. And then I file that and I give it to the government. And then presumably the government also does that and then decides that I did it wrong and then says that I didn't pay them enough or paid them too much or something. And it's like, well, if they could have done all of that, maybe they could have just told me what I was supposed to pay. Like, why do I have to do all of that work? And so it's like, presumably we're at some point going to look at this event and be like, well, you didn't get the right kind of insurance, therefore you were not covered or whatever. Like you can't have the event. It's like, it's because we are the ones who want the user to have the insurance. I feel like we're the ones who at the end of the day are going to be the people who are going to decide whether they got the right kind of insurance or not. And so because of that, we may as well just tell them what insurance to get, like not hand them a giant manual or a chart or any kind of a diagram or any breakdown that would like let them figure out what kind of insurance they need based on their event. It's like, I feel like we should just tell them, you need this.
Yeah, we'll do that. That's not a big deal.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. We'll pre-pick the insurance plans we need to do. That's not hard.
Yeah, I see that they denote their insurance by hazard categories, so we can use those to create that for users.
Oh, that was my only feedback from the. Otherwise, the whole stacked pyramid of things is what we talked about before, and I think we already decided, at least at our level, that this is a great way of trying to go about it. We will see if we bring it to the full board and they have some complaint. Then I'm okay just.
I'm okay with everything I've heard and read.
All right.
Do you guys want us to do more extensive than what has already been done, essentially like community outreach about this, or just test it out in fall and see what happens?
In the with the concern that by just throwing it at people, we might turn people away from using the communities like that. That one. It's
Maybe
the
like we
idea
can
that
get more feedback. I mean, no one wants to pay money, so
Yeah,
people
I
are
mean,
going to be like,
right,
no.
everyone's going to be unhappy with
Yeah.
the feedback at the survey level.
So I guess we wouldn't be asking them, do you want us to institute this or not? Because we've determined we need to. It's maybe more seeing, does it make sense to them? sort of thing. But we could also just test it out and then change it if it doesn't work.
I think I'm okay going forward with that. I mean, I guess one thing that maybe we need to be sensitive to is we presumably have, or maybe we don't actually, no, come to think of it, maybe we don't. Do we, I'll ask a question, do we have reservations that are sufficiently far forward that they would be, that like people who've already applied for space and have already been approved for space would like be in this region of time?
I
where
don't
we
think
might-
we charge them that.
Okay,
They've already gotten it, but we have, they're not even able to get fall reservations yet.
okay,
So it hasn't opened yet. for fall.
okay. Yeah, I think this is as people come to us, we just explain to them that that
This is what
if we charge. And if it's somebody who's been using us for a while, we'll explain that it's different now. And we'll say, do you like it? Do you hate it? Like, how much do you hate it? And I still think we should essentially see if we're losing any people. If to the extent to which people are, because I think we've got some high touch ability momentarily, at least, to the extent to which there are people who are like seemingly uneasy about it, we can even tell them that, like, by the way, we're still evaluating this. So if we end up going in a different direction, we'll reach back out to you for your recurring event in the future.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
Thank you.
That's all. Do you need a motion at this time?
A motion is helpful, but
Okay.
we don't need it. We can pose.
And in this case, it would be to recommend, is it like,
Community spaces rental policy. That's what we call it.
Recommend it to the full board.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
oh, wait, we should really verify. Olivia, I just realized that you haven't been on camera for a bit. Are you, or at least, you might be on camera, but we aren't seeing you because of whatever reason technologically on our end. Are you?
Okay. Can you see me now? If I talk, do I come on screen? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Now we're clicking.
Yeah,
and now
I
we
feel
see
good
all-
about
I'm
everything.
only saying it because I'm kind of forgetting that you're there, and I should not forget that you're there. Like, so. Do you have any feedback?
Yeah, I feel good about this. I feel good about moving forward with it. I like that you brought up the concerns around insurance because I also agree that that shouldn't be a barrier. But yeah, I feel good with where this policy is at and just like moving forward with it. So.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you so much. I want to make sure we like really, yeah, but now your motion.
I'd like to move that the policy committee is recommending the community spaces rental fees policy to the board.
I will second.
Okay, motion by Aguilar, second by Craig. Let's move on to a roll call vote. Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Craig,
Yes.
Director Freeman, yes. Motion passes 3-0-0-0-0 at 6:21. Okay. Is there any public comment? I should have asked earlier. No,
There's no one here.
So, okay. Is there anything else we want to address or need to address on this agenda item before we move on to the next one? So now moving on to 3.2 public tree distribution policy committee. We'll have a discussion on public tree distribution via correction staff. There we go.
So Jen has been working on some research and we don't have, I think, I meant to just say, we're still in preliminary discussion. It's not a proposed policy yet, but Jenna did some research on the outlines of it and she can talk you through what she's looking at and then kind of want to get your direction on specific things like the goal of the policy and what kinds of trees and other things like that, so then we can write something. But we meant to do this a few months ago, but just different timing hasn't worked out. So we're just catching up to where we were back in April.
This wasn't something we were able to review ahead of time, right?
No, this is new.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, there's so much stuff on the screen and I don't think I read anything.
No, yeah.
Okay.
These are just like the questions that Jenna's gonna
Alright.
walk through.
Okay.
Yeah, so hi everyone. All of these notes that I have here are a culmination of things I've learned through researching other cities and counties and their tree policies, as well as through speaking with people at the county, arborists at the county, and with Ken Knight, who works with the Your Children's Trees program. So mainly, and just so that you know, we're talking both about planting trees on private property and public property. And the things that we'll need to consider in each policy is going to differ whether or not we're talking about planting on private or public property. So, for example, something that I've really learned is that a good tree policy addresses the implementation of new trees, but it also addresses the maintenance and preservation of existing trees. Now this is very important. It's something that we may have a bit of a hand in when it comes to public trees. Even then, it might be a bit more difficult because, of course, we have to consult the county. But when it comes to private trees, there's just pretty much no way that we can actually take an inventory and make sure that people aren't cutting down trees that are in their backyard. So this is important, but it's not something that we always have control over. And kind of on that note, having an understanding of the current canopy cover and tree inventory is also super important. The question, where are there trees and where are there not trees? Again, we can't really tell where there are trees everywhere on private property, but we can on public property. The county does have a list. And then as you could see, what Jonathan pulled up is a website that shows canopy cover in Isla Vista. For the most part, from what I have observed, it's pretty obvious where there are and are not trees. And the reason it's important to know where there are and are not trees is so we can create a long-term plan of where our trees should be going. But of course, if we're going to be distributing trees to property owners or residents, the distribution itself is not something that we so much have control of. So next, a policy should mention the desired outcome, especially when we are creating a long-term plan for public trees. We want to ask ourselves and the community, why do we want to plant more trees? And there's so many reasons why we might want to, but we'll probably, apparently from research, it's very important to consult the community and see what they think is important. Is it shade, aesthetics, wildlife habitat preservation, stormwater runoff or runoff reduction, and the list goes on. But we want to prioritize these outcomes so that we can prioritize the locations we want the trees in. So that's for public, but then when it comes to private, it's a little bit different. We would more so want to consult individual property owners what they're looking for. Do they want more shade or more aesthetics? Do they want a tree that is going to be green year round, or do they care about that kind of thing? So next, going into risk management and emergency management protocol, this is something we would want to include in our policy when we're dealing with public trees. Whereas if we are helping to put trees on private property, the idea is that the property manager or residents would take over the maintenance at that property. And then as far as what kinds of trees, this applies in different ways to both public and private properties. Now, I do want to say I've linked there a list of the approved trees for the public right of way in Santa Barbara County. What we would need to do is consult an arborist, whether or not it's in public or private or private property, because a lot of the trees we would want to put in private property would still be in the public right of way. So an arborist would be able to go and take a look at what type of soil is in the potential location, are there telephone wires, etc., in order to determine the type of tree and how big and wide that tree is going to get. Is it going to be messy and be dropping flowers? All those have to be considered per the location that the tree would go in. So for the most part, these are the main takeaways that I've found in my research regarding policy.
Okay. To verify, you are providing a sort of not summary, like an outline for the work that you will be doing, or is it, or are you hoping that we will provide feedback and answer questions?
I think provide some feedback on
Okay.
what kind of tree policy we want. These are like the different kinds of things that could be in it, different focuses, like public focus, private focused, or distribution to private property. So kind of just decide what you would like Jenna to write up, or Jamie would be involved and I would too, and and then we design a program flowing out of that.
I was being
Yeah.
I was a little confused because I felt like there was a presentation of like, this is what's important to have in a policy, and it's like, okay, this is what's important to have in a policy.
Yeah, but
So I guess we'll do this. But,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I wasn't personally necessarily thinking that we would be looking immediately at the process of maintaining the private trees, given that we don't have any jurisdiction over it, as noted in the outline, but I'm not certain if that's.
oh, that
any
was
feedback.
mentioned for public trees. If we planted more trees in public.
Oh, but yeah, but you okay.
But we wouldn't have any jurisdiction over the private maintenance. We can just
There
say,
was, okay.
here's our
Oh, I
goals.
see, I see. It's, we can outline goals for distribution policy that aligns with preservation of the private trees.
Yeah, I mean, we could say our preference is for no private trees to be removed, but if they are, here's, please replace it this way. And here's a tree we would, you would be able to pick up a tree from us.
Okay.
So, or like
Cool.
if these are the kinds of tree, if you remove a specific kind of tree, I don't know a lot about this, but there's like a special kind of tree that is being removed, let's replace it with these 3 different types that are good replacements.
Okay.
But that's what is mentioned down here, is like, what do we want the goal to be? Is it preservation more? Is it shade? Is it aesthetics?
Okay. I think I misunderstood. I thought that the presentation was saying that we should ask the community for that question and not answer it ourselves, but I definitely have an opinion.
I think we
But,
should start with your guys'
okay.
opinion, I think, and then go to the community.
Okay, so for what it's worth, I wasn't sure. I am not sure if Isla Vista, the trees are helping with stormwater runoff reduction, even where we have them. Because I was kind of in the impression that we use the storm drain system for that, because we're a modern concrete jungle. But if it's possible that that the trees would help with stormwater runoff reduction, that sounds cool.
Yeah, I think it was just like a list.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying.
Yeah.
Marcos, do you have anything here?
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate these like examples on like desired outcomes. I was particularly drawn to the stormwater runoff reduction as like a concept. I don't have an idea of like I don't have an opinion or an imagination on what that looks like, but I feel like we could get more educated answer like on that specific thing. Like me as a director, like I'm very interested in that as a concept because of the effects that that's having on our community. Stormwater runoff is like what's advancing. It's one of the factors advancing like bluff erosion. Stormwater runoff is one of the things that is a factor into Isla Vista being a pollutant, a factor of pollution. And so this is complicated because we don't have that much space to like, let's make a tree catchment system, like we can't make space out of nowhere, but yeah. I like these examples. That particular one that you highlighted, Jay, for me, I was like, whoa, that sounds cool. Like individually, I was just like, that's great. I also like the wildlife habitat preservation because we do have so many. I've been bird nerding a lot recently. In my neighborhood, there's been a lot of birds of prey, and they enjoy just like the massively huge trees that are really tall. And we're also next to the UC Nature Preserve, so I feel like some of that coordination is important. And just seeing like, you know, they might have some opinion. We don't have to take all of them, but there's people there. It's like their job is to like facilitate that rehabilitation of wildlife. Um, and I feel like in general, community members would participate in like some inquiry on this. Like not, we don't have to go like crazy with a survey, but I feel like people will offer their opinion on this. And yeah, I feel like that's something we will get a lot of easy feedback from, like across demographics of Iowa distance. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if I can,
Shane,
Oh, sorry,
go
go ahead.
ahead. No, I'm done.
sorry.
Seems like Jenna was gonna respond to the points from Marcos, and then we can move on to Olivia, or?
Oh,
You can go
really quick, I was just going to speak on the stormwater runoff. So the way that it would help with that is the tree roots would suck up some of the rainwater so that there's less rainwater going into the storm drain, because when rainwater goes into the storm drain, it's carrying with it all of the pollutants that have been caked on the asphalt and cement, if that makes sense. So instead, the water's being absorbed rather than going into the storm drain and into the ocean. So it is a really great way of preventing stormwater runoff. I obviously love the goal of having a place for birds to live and other animals. And then I also think shade is super important, especially on Del Playa. It's just such a noticeable difference walking on Del Playa versus some of the other streets, especially in the summertime. The sunlight is just so direct, and it feels a lot better and more comfortable and encourages people to go outside a lot more when there is shade. That's all I had to say.
Thank you so much, Olivia.
And I do think like a big portion of this discussion even could be equity based, because we talk about like Isla Vista is one of the lower income areas within Santa Barbara County, and there is inequity within green spaces. And I think we definitely see that in our community to some degree. I am very fortunate. I live out on 6A block like Marcos does. And I will say, like, comparing where I live now to where I lived, like even just a little bit, a couple blocks further into like the middle of IV, a couple years ago, like I definitely think like, and there are studies to show this too, that there's like a positive effect on mental health in regards to green spaces as well. And so I think that all of these things are really great considerations, and I definitely like am enthusiastic to increase tree cover in our community. I think that that's also like planning resilience as the climate crisis continues to progress, in terms of like long-term bluff erosion. Like deep-rooted trees can really be effective in stabilizing cliffs, things like that. Yeah, so, but I also don't want us to take on like an undue amount of responsibility when caring for the trees. And I think that's one like thing I'm apprehensive about when it comes to private trees in particular.
I did
Okay.
want to mention one thing. Your Children's Trees is still willing to help us. And I also feel that we would be eligible potentially for some grants, just due to the fact that we are a low income community and there is a lot of tree inequality throughout our community. Also, gosh, let me think about what I was gonna say next. Come back to me. Oh, what I was gonna say is that So our reasoning for wanting to plant these trees, which we were all just discussing, it does apply to private trees as well, because say we only have a certain number of private trees that we want to plant. And what the maintenance would look like is just watering for a year or two, which, like I said, your children's trees would be willing to help with. But we would want to narrow down why we want to plant the trees so that we could choose where we want to plant them. So say we only had 10 trees to plant on private property and we have a bunch of people saying they want trees on their property, we could prioritize certain properties over others.
And are we okay doing that if we have an objective process for it? Like if we're, for example, trying to improve storm drainage and we calculate that like, oh, you know, it's like somewhere on that street, somewhere in this street, we're allowed to differentially benefit those people?
I think I think we should be able to, we can check that with
Right.
Jamie, but if we wanted to create some sort of ranking that, you know, the west end or the east end of IV has a higher priority than the west end because there's less trees there, my gut says yes, but we can.
Yeah, I'm only sensitive to it because every time we talked about this previously, legal came back to us and was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
No, I think as long as we make it a fair process,
Okay.
but if we have like a score ranking system, like you said, we would be able to say, oh, well, you meet more criteria, so you can get it, you're first in line.
I feel like when we've talked about things like benefit assessments, that like if you, for example, have a government and we tax everybody and we are deciding that we're going to help this subset of the community, that we can run into issues if that subset of the community is location based, because I guess we're not property tax, so it doesn't matter. I don't know. That's right. So yeah, and I hope we can do this because I'm really excited about trees.
So is that something you guys would want to have us check in, is having some sort of criteria ranking system?
Only for me. I don't know. I just, you know what? I'm actually weirdly, I'm at the stage where it's like, I feel like Jen has put a lot of thought into this. And I feel like this framework that's here is like really good for how to put policy. And I just feel drowning in the idea of like trying to adjust it because I think it's actually really good. So like, I just feel really like I trust that Jen is going to be able to do something reasonable with this.
Okay.
And then come back with more of a policy. But I don't know if other people agree with me. Maybe Marco says more. Wants to do another round of this.
No, I mean, there's nothing that I want to highlight that I have like a question where I feel lost. And there's nothing that I feel like we need to talk about today.
Okay. Olivia, what do you got?
Yeah, I feel good about this. I'm with you. Super pro tree.
All right.
Jenna, do you feel like you have direction to write a policy outline?
I like the idea of creating some kind of ranking system. I can definitely do that. And then based on some of the priorities that you have as to why we would want to plant trees, I could do some more research on how we can bring that into existence. I guess all I would really want at the end of the day is for our lawyer to look at it, but I'll write something up and then she could take a look and we can go from there.
Great. All right. Any public comments on this? Presumably, we would need a motion for this kind of direction.
I don't think so, we're good.
Anything else board members want to cover on this agenda item? Hearing nothing, moving on to moving on to agenda item 4, future meeting dates and future agenda items. The next regular meeting of the policy committee will take place on Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. That's not right yet. At 6 p.m. on Zoom and at the community room at 970 Property Del Mar, Vista, California.
Do you guys have any other future policies? We have a couple like smaller cleanup things to do next. Like we had our bereavement and jury duty policies. I think we had discussed cleaning them up. But it's not major changes, but is there anything else on your guys' mind?
I'm good.
Anything else? No? We had, we looking at this list, I don't see anything pressing myself, but like I said, there's a bunch of these smaller employment policies, but they're not new or big changes. They're just more refinements.
Okay, any public comment with future agenda items? Seeing none, moving on to agenda item 5, adjourn. Motion for adjourn?
You can just do it.
Okay, I've called this meeting adjourned at 6:43.
Bye, Olivia.